music. Oh, what's going on, everybody? I don't have music. Oh, is that too loud? Is that too loud? I think that's too loud. What's happening? It's touching all this. We're trying to get all the technical details settled for the live stream tonight. How y'all doing tonight? Good to have you. Good to see there's a number of you. What's going on, everybody? I am here live, broadcasting to you from Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, the beautiful port city of Jeddah, here on the Red Sea, on the west coast of Saudi Arabia. And behind me is my hotel. I'm trying to find the right lighting setting. That's maybe too much light. I'm trying to find the right lighting setting, and I don't really know how to use this light. And this is the Ritz-Carlton, Jeddah. Very, very, man, I got to tell you. Yeah, we're kind of, I'm shrouded in dark. I was born into darkness. How about that? That's a little bit better, right? Okay, how about there? All right, so here we are. We are in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. This is the Ritz-Carlton Hotel behind me. I'm here because the guys that put together all of the competitions here in Saudi Arabia called me, like I said last week, they called me a week ago, and they're like, hey, can you come and oversee our event? And what we're doing here is the Cup Tasters Championship, which is a triangulation tasting competition where the competitors take 8 different sets of triangulations, and there are 2 of the same coffees and 1 of the external, a secondary coffee, and you must identify the odd cup from those 3, and you must do 8 sets of those and do it within 8 minutes. And if you happen to get all 8 correct, what differentiates you from other people that have gotten all the 8 correct is the amount of time that you've been able to do it in. So if you get all 8 correct, and it took you 6 minutes 30 seconds, but the next person that got all 8 correct took 6 minutes 29 seconds, that person beats you. So that's what we're doing here. I hope it sounds good. I'm running a wireless microphone to the camera, and the camera's running to the computer, and it's a little bit more of a hodgepodge setup. So I don't know. So Rusty's asking, what's Rusty saying? 3 a.m. Yes, it is 3 a.m. here in Saudi Arabia. Here it is, 3:07. It is 3 a.m. and I have been awake all day. Actually, it's interesting. I've found that on these long haul trips that I'm doing, the first night that I arrive is usually one where I can sleep pretty heavy. So I got to the hotel around 2:30 in the morning on Tuesday morning. And then I took a tour of the venue and the competition space at 3. I finally went into my room around 4. I think I went to bed at 5, and I slept hard until I think I slept until 4 o'clock. Room service was wondering what am I doing there, and they wanted me to leave, and so I didn't. And then, but last night I couldn't sleep at all, because by that time I was able to sleep through all the exhaustion of travel. So that just meant that I was trying to go to bed at 6 o'clock. So if I'm trying to go to bed at 1 a.m., it's only 7 p.m. back home. So my body's still 7 p.m. So I basically laid in bed all night just wishing that I could sleep. And finally, I got a couple hours sleep starting around, actually, I didn't sleep at all. So at 6:45, 6:30, the breakfast buffet starts. So at 6:45, I went to the breakfast buffet, came back around 7:30. Then I was able to crash for 3 hours. And then I haven't slept since. So I've been awake since about 11:30, and now it's 3 a.m. and I'm here with you guys, just like the last time. Yeah. So, it's 3. That was Brian that said 3 a.m. Yeah, it's 3 a.m. And yes, I'm kind of red because I've got this red LED light, and I should be looking at how to change the settings to make it a different color. Let's see what we can do here. Here's a bluish, it's kind of like a festive color. Now, here's the thing. 3 a.m. in Saudi Arabia is not that late, right? Like, for example, I'm going to turn the camera on for just a moment, and you're going to see across the street, there is this coffee bar. It's 3 a.m. in the morning, and they're still rolling. They're not even planning to close yet. There's still people hanging out. There's people drinking. And that's the one thing about this country that's so interesting to me, is that everybody's drinking. Everybody's, you know, oh, good Lord. Let's try that again. You know, because there's no alcohol here, everybody drinks coffee and hangs out till wee hours of the morning. And also because it's a hot country, right? So during the day, especially during the summertime, it's 50 degrees. So that's what, 130 degrees Fahrenheit. So most people stay indoors during the day or sleep in. And then finally in the evening when it cools, that's when they go out and, like, you know, you're talking like 11, 12, 1, 2. It's still pumping. Like, the people are out and about. The cafes are full. It's very interesting in that respect, man. Very interesting. All right. So, oh yeah, there's Rusty. Hi, Brian and Tony. Good. So because it's so late, like normally I would have a coffee, and I don't have a coffee now. I've got Diet Pepsi, because this country is like hell-bent on Pepsi. They love Pepsi. Tony, you would love it here because everybody here uses Pepsi. It's a Pepsi world. So today's show is possible because of these two guys, the two bell guys. So I met the first bell guy, Charles, when I first checked in. He was very kind, took care of my bags, took them up to my room, laid them all out. And then while I was doing my site tour, then I finally came back and he was like, let me take you to the room. And then his coworker, you know, they were all, I went to them earlier today and I was like, hey, you know, where can I have a cigar? And surprisingly, there was a cigar lounge here at the Ritz-Carlton prior to the pandemic, but that has been closed. And there's no real pool decorator. There's no pool at this hotel. And I know that sounds kind of weird, but it actually makes sense in the context of Saudi Arabia. But I'll get to that in a moment. But there's a smoking area on the side of the building. It's just a bench, and it's really kind of, you know, there's nothing. It's just for cigarette smokers, right? It's not for someone doing a cigar. So I said to the guy, I said, hey, is there any way we can, like, is there any place that I can go to hide out that's not too crazy? And they're like, we can give you a table set up outside by the fountain in the front of the building. And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. And so they brought me, you know, some beverage, some water, aquapana, some nice glassware, and a nice bucket. So I've got everything I need to sit here and hang out with you guys. And I mean, these guys, they just go out of the way for you. And it's really, really fantastic. Like, they brought out a table and a chair and all this stuff. And the front desk manager came out, was apologetic, like, we're so sorry we couldn't accommodate you. And I was like, wow, this is actually quite accommodating. So, but they even gave me a little note. Look at that. And it says, Dear Mr. Webb, like as in internet web. Dear Mr. Webb, we apologize as we don't have a cigar lounge at this moment. Kindly accept this humble setup on the behalf of our ladies and gentlemen and enjoy your cigar. Best regards, Namda Kumar and Charles, your guest service team. Thank you, Namda and Charles. I really appreciate this accommodation and putting me up out here. It's wonderful. It's very nice, you know, note here. I'm going to keep that. I'm going to keep that in our memorabilia in my bag so it doesn't blow away and I don't forget it later. All right, so we're here. How's the weather back there? Right now, it's pretty lovely here in Jeddah. As you can see, it's, well, one of the things, because we are at the waterfront, right? So we are facing the port. Now, if you happen to look on the internet, there's a place called the Corniche, and the Corniche is this kind of seaside walk that has all these like attractions and stuff. I haven't seen it yet. It's 30 kilometers long, and it starts on the north end with the mosque on the sea, which looks really amazing. Maybe I'll get the chance to go there. But that's actually a couple miles from here. This is actually the port area, close to where they have this big water fountain. And unfortunately, the water fountain is there. Let's see if we can let you see it. So I don't know if you can see that too well, but here in the distance, yeah, see that in the center of the screen? That's actually a massive water fountain just shooting a plume in the air. It's actually rated by the Guinness Book of World Records as the largest water fountain in the world. It's quite crazy. And then out here you can see beyond the gate, it is actually the port of Jeddah, what they call the Muslim port of Jeddah. And it's quite nice. It's very, well, I don't know if it's nice. I haven't seen any of it because I've been basically in working this competition. And here's the strange reality that people always ask me is they're like, oh, so this big building right here, this is the convention center. It's 83,000 square feet. It's the largest convention center in Jeddah. And, you know, people are always like, oh man, how was your vacation? And where did you go? And like, you know, here's the reality. I've been to some very exotic places, you know, Italy, wherever, right? This is really what I do. I get to go see the beautiful concrete boxes of the world and sit in a concrete box with air conditioning most of the time. But I must say, this one is super opulent. Like, it's the most opulent I've ever seen. Like, the intricacy and details. Like, when I first walked into the lobby here at the Ritz-Carlton, I was just, like, stunned. Like, the level of details and ornateness in everything. And, you know, you could take pictures of it, but it really doesn't give you the true depth of what is going on. Like, it's shocking. Shocking. All right. Let's move on. So out here, it's pretty warm. It's like 25 degrees, maybe. So like maybe 72, 73, 74. But unfortunately, today there's a pretty strong trade winds here. So it's actually kind of windy and cool because it feels cool. And the real difference between Jeddah and Riyadh, the capital, is that since we're on the waterfront here in Jeddah, it's super humid. Like it feels like I'm in Hawaii. Like the humidity on my skin and everything, you can feel that it's a little more laden. It's actually kind of nice and cool and refreshing. Whereas when you're in Riyadh, it's super dry. Like if you're not drinking water all the time, you really start to feel like, oh, I'm getting kind of ill. And Mark says it's raining today in Baltimore. Warm, late night. Nice cloudy sunset. Oh, all right, right on. I know right before I left, we switched to daylight saving time, which is a wonderful thing. And Di says it's way past your bedtime. Yes, quite it is. Actually, I was actually thinking for a brief moment earlier tonight. I was like, maybe I should just crash and like call her off. I was like, but no, we have to do this. So let us talk about tonight's cigar. Since we don't have any coffee, we've just got Diet Pepsi. I tried to ask them about cherry Diet Pepsi, but unfortunately, they could not accommodate us with that, although they were very eager to. All right, so I'm going to get some ice cubes here. So what we're going to discuss, you know, since we don't have coffee have to get the. We're going to get some ice cubes and prepare our beverage. Now, of course, Saudi Arabia is a dry country, so there's no alcohol here at all. And actually, it's interesting because I was thinking, oh, you know, I'll go to the cigar lounge here and maybe go to the lounge. And then I realized there's no bar in the hotel because there's no bars anywhere in the country. So I always kind of forget. But I don't go to the bar very often anyway on a trip. So I don't really I'm not missing anything. It's just that when I thought about it, I was like, oh, I have to check that out. Yes, Saudi is only 7 hours from the East Coast this time of year. You know, of course, we sprang forward, so 7. It was 8 when we're in the middle of. So actually, when we were doing this in December, it was much harder because it had to wait another hour. I think in December we started at 3 a.m. Riyadh time, but that was 7 p.m. your guys' time, and I was actually very happy that it's only 3 a.m. here. Oh, we're pouring our Diet Pepsi. I got a head on it. That's not good. Oh, and Di says, we're back in a bit. Dinner time with the folks. Oh, your parents are in town. Excellent. Give them my love and my regards. All right, so we've got our Diet Pepsi. Saudi is a Pepsi country. Like there is Coke here, but most places serve Pepsi, much to my chagrin. And actually, when I go to places back home that are, you know, selling, you know, like Middle Eastern food, you know, and they're like, oh, we have Pepsi. I was like, okay, you guys serve Pepsi. This must be kind of authentic. All right, we're going to get into our cigar now. So as you have seen in the show notes, tonight's cigar is from Ace Prime, and it's called the Sergeant. And I really don't know much about Ace Prime. Actually, we had a cigar from Ace Prime last year. Unfortunately, I don't recall which one it is, but this one's called the Sergeant. I don't know if you can see much of that. I know it's a little bit of a different setup here. You're going to have to go with my assessment of it. You know, I've got this purple, I'm bathing in purple light. Maybe I should change that light again. I'm going to blue, teal, green, yellowish. Oh, here, that's more of a tungsten. So the Sergeant feels nice. It's a pretty thick cigar. I think it's like 56 by 5. Oh, there it is. Tony says it was the Fiat Lux Robusto. I don't recall what I thought about the Fiat Lux Robusto back then. I don't think I hated it. I don't recall hating it, but I also don't recall like thinking that was the most awesome cigar I've ever had. So, yeah, I don't know. No halogen spotlight. You know, a little bit too heavy, too bulky to carry. Everything is. I'm trying to keep everything light. These are little tiny LEDs. Little LED lights. And this one's the RGB light that I can change the color temperature. And there we go to red. And now we're back. So this one actually doesn't really turn like a nice, it doesn't really do a nice, what do you call it? It doesn't really do, let me put that here. I do have one that's just, but it's also super bright. Like, oh, how's that? Maybe that's better. Oh, that's probably better. All right, we'll do that. Do it this way. Is that too weird looking? I don't know. Let's see here. Brian says, has Amy ever sang the opening? Oh, nice. All right, so we're going to cut into this Sergeant. It's pretty thick. Like, I'm actually running everything on battery tonight. So the camera, the laptop that I'm running from, and the phone are all running off a battery. So hopefully it'll last the entire time. It may not. All right, we're cutting it. Oh, it's nice, and it's still got a good, like, tough squeeze because there's a lot of resilience because the wrapper is still nicely hydrated. So that's a real nice thing. It does feel nice and silky. The color was pretty nice. A nice, like, darker, like Maduro. Not darker Maduro, but like a good solid Maduro. And it feels nice and silky. Oh, on the nose, the fragrance has some really nice spice. Maybe not really black pepper, but like a light manure black pepper, but a really rich kind of manure. So it's quite enticing. Tony says, that's the best so far. You mean this one is the best so far, or the lighting? Ah, better lighting, yes. Okay, good. Lighting's perfect. Oh, good. Glad to hear it. Cutting by Cigar. No, cutting tonight is by my father's cigar, Don Pepin Garcia cigar cutter, cheapo cigar cutter. This is what I've been traveling with for the last, like, maybe 3-4 years. And, you know, stuff that I can bring with me that if it gets confiscated by whatever government agency is inspecting my bags, it's not a tremendous loss. And then usually I also travel with a couple sets of matches. And I even have a little Bic lighter. Here, I keep this little Bic with me. Now, there's so much crosswind, I really don't know if any of this is going to work. Like right now, it's blowing like around me. So we're going to try to light it. But let's give it a cold draw first. So were any of you guys able to pick up this cigar to try tonight? Or have you tried it earlier? I'd love to hear more about it. And if you're not, what are you smoking tonight? I know some of you guys are outside. What are you smoking? What are you drinking? Let me know. This is going to be a difficult exercise to light. So the flags are blowing this way. See if I can just turn this way. How am I going to do this? I'm getting a little bit at a time. I'm burning my hand. I would normally use the matches, but that would be an exercise in frustration tonight. So we're getting closer to it. Oh, almost there. Okay, that's more or less lit. All right, good, good. Initial light is pretty nice. Like, you know, we get some cigars that have that nice heavy, that have a heavy spice. Like last week's cigar had a pretty heavy forward spice, like a cinnamony spice, plus a really heavy kind of black pepper. It's not like that. This is very much milder. This is very much more reserved. Yeah, it's definitely not as bold in that respect. It's much of more of a mellow beginning. Maybe a little bit of touch of ashiness on the palate, but that could be because the way that I had to light it. And I feel like I'm getting bit by mosquitoes. Tony, you would hate it out here. You'd be afraid of mosquitoes. And Brian says, Dave said it's part of the barnyards here. And Tony's having a Southern Draw, 300 hands Habano Churchill with the Mountain Dew Diet Watermelon. Nice, nice. And Brian's having a big fat LFD cabinet, beautiful. And then Rusty had one of the February farm rolled from Privada. You know that here's the thing that I don't understand about those Privadas. I'm wondering if they missed. I know I mentioned this last week and I was going to check on it, but I didn't. But I wonder if they missed or skipped a month because, you know, I thought it said March on the newest one. But the #1 cigar, the one that has the really light Colorado wrapper, I thought that was really good. The last two, the 2 and 3 were, 2 was just meh. 3 was good. But I thought 1, to me, really was very, very nice. I was really, really enjoying that. And Brian says Dave's having an Illusion Ultra. Nice. All right, so we're getting a little bit of an uneven draw at the very outset of this, which is to be expected because of the way that, you know, it was lit. It's very uneven in lighting because of the. If I waited now, maybe it'll be easier, but it's kind of died down a little bit. But right now, this is really nice cigar weather. Like if it was actually less windy, it'd be perfect. But I can deal with it. I even put because of the crosswind, I actually put on a vest. I don't know if you can see, but I'm actually wearing a fleece vest just to give a little insulation so I'm not so cold out here. And I think I did get bit. Goodness. Oh, Eric's smoking a T52. That's a lovely cigar. You know, I used to smoke those a lot. The problem is that, at least for me, you know, when it got to be 15 and above, I was like, oh man, that really put a downturn on my. And then Bud's having the Illusion Ultra, excellent, excellent. Excellent. And then Rusty said, "Oh, the March box is on the way." Okay, when you get the March box, I think that's the March box that I got. When you get the March box, I think you're really going to enjoy that. No, the first cigar. And I'd be interested to know what you think about the second and third cigars. I haven't smoked the fourth cigar. I've got that. It's still at the humidor back at home, and so I'm gonna try that maybe next week. So. Yeah, here's the thing. Like, I like it when cigars are a little bit heavier. This is a little bit on the lighter side. Like, it's lighter on body, boldness. It's lighter on even on complexity. Like, it's not terribly complex. And I think I really enjoy cigars that are more complex. That really are kind of like, oh, that's offering an exploration of. This is very simple. Flavor-wise, it's very simple. The sergeant is very simple. Maybe the lieutenant will be more, interesting. Or maybe the master sergeant is what we need to be smoking. So Rusty has a question. Okay. Has anyone had the SP1014 cigars by Sanj Patel? I just had one the other day. I thought it was delicious. Oh, all right. Wanted your opinions if you have them. Me personally, I don't recall smoking the SP1014 or 1014. Maybe the other guys, maybe Tony and them have. I haven't personally. And speaking of Rusty, if you guys forgot about it or just didn't remember that or didn't know, last weekend Rusty came down to Baltimore with his wife Amy because she was giving a concert with Maryland Opera. And myself, Brian, and Maria happened to go, and I thought it was a fantastic time. For me, it always is. It's one of the few opportunities that I get to go and listen to opera being done live. So I'm always very pleased to do that. So over the pandemic, she came down a couple times, and they did outdoor concerts one was at Bordy Vineyards, and the other one was somewhere else that I can't remember right now. But some selections from Tosca, which I really enjoy, and so, yeah, fantastic. Maybe next time we get to come down and check it out. And Brian says he has not tried the SP 1014. Yeah, this one, so it's got a really nice draw. Like, it's even and smooth and easy drawing, but it's just not terribly complex. I like the length. I like the extra thickness. Like, I'm guessing it's a 56 instead of a typical Robusta that's like 52 and 54. Like, this 56 is like, it's a nice, robust kind of feeling cigar, But yeah, it's we're just into it now, and it's just not terribly exciting. Construction-wise, performance-wise, it's very good. Like, very good. Draw, very good. Body, on the lighter side. But here's the thing. It's on the lighter side, but it's very good quality of body, right? So, like, if we think about the score sheet, we have intensity on the body as well as quality, right? So intensity on the body is pretty low. Like, I'd say below medium. But the quality of that, I think it's very good. This is where I think we might have to look at, where I think more the objectivity of trying to evaluate a cigar comes in. Like, this personally, the flavor profile isn't really hitting me where I want to be hit. Like, I want it to, it's not punching the numbers for me, right? It's got some, but they're pretty low and they're pretty, like, mild, right? but the quality of the mild is very good. The body is on the lower intensity, but very good. Like there's nothing really to say that's bad about it. It just so far it's not really spicing up my life. Rusty says, besides the cooler food, I might need to bring a box of. Oh, excellent, excellent. We would love to have that. I would love to try that. That would be very nice. So as you can probably hear this, I don't know if you can hear those horns, but there's still people cruising on the street out in front of the hotel, and horns honking because people are out and about and people walking, and it's 3:30 in the morning here. Now, granted, it's 3:30 on a Thursday morning, on a Thursday night. Yeah, Thursday night. That's Friday morning here. So, granted, on Thursday night, it's a different kind of story here in Saudi Arabia because this is actually their Friday. Fridays here in Saudi are the holy day for Islam. So Muslims will have this is their Sunday. And of course, then so their weekend is Friday, Saturday. Friday is the equivalent to our Sunday. Saturday is still Saturday. Saturday is always Saturday, I guess, unless you're in Israel. And then Sunday here is a work day. Like everybody's back to work on Sunday. That takes a little bit of getting used to. Like, we're as Christians, and Catholics, we're all geared to like, okay, we're coolly, we're chilling on Sundays. But here you're like, all right, back to work. Although I have heard people discuss that at some point in time, they're going to migrate that so that Saudi can be more in unison with the rest of the world. Will that happen? Who knows? There's a lot of talk here about different things. Yeah, really, the draw, really nice. Everything about it. Construction so far has been really good. Wrapper was lovely. Really, if it had, let's put it this way, if it had the flavor of the Revenge, this would be, I would be saying it's totally banging. But because it doesn't have that flavor, oomph, depth, complexity, it's flavor-wise, it's good. Everything else is very good. But the good part of it is really just that becomes very subjective, right? But the quality of the flavors is very good, if that makes sense. Brian says, I thought you were going to say 3-day weekends. I was like, whoa. Yeah, no, they don't. But they don't work until they don't. I still don't actually understand how they work, right? Like there are business hours like 9 to 5. People go to their offices during the day, but people are out till like 1, 2, 3 in the morning on weeknights here. So I don't really understand how these guys work. Like I think some of them come in and go to work at 10 a.m. But they're up late. I'm still trying to understand how it all works here. But unfortunately, I cannot tell you that they do 3-day work weeks. But we are, you've heard that the term everyone talks about, Mecca, right? We're praying to Mecca. Mecca is actually about an hour from where I am right now. And the Qumrah says, okay, that's the ocean. So Mecca is that way, like about that way. So when you're praying, you will pray in that direction. You always pray towards Mecca in Islam. So wherever you are, so if this is the black box, wherever you are, you pray towards it. Not always to the east, like they say, right? You pray around it. However, we are banned as non-Muslims from entering the city of Mecca. Like we can't even go there. Like that's forbidden. And it actually looks pretty cool. Every time I see pictures or like models of the place, I always think I would love to check that out. My problem is I really don't know much about Islam. So, I'd probably drive to Mecca and then people would be like, I would be like, Assalamu alaikum. And they'd be like, Walaikum assalam. Afwan, or they'd be asked something, and I'd be like, yeah. Or they're going to ask me something about like the Prophet Muhammad. The Prophet Muhammad did this, right? Yes. No, he didn't. Oh, man. And then they would deport. So if you're a non-Muslim and you're caught in the city of Mecca, you will be deported and you will be banned from ever entering Saudi Arabia again in the rest of your life. So, since I have been enjoying coming here, it's not really worth the risk to go check it out. Plus, if you're going to Mecca, here's the thing. So as I was so I flew from the United States to Riyadh. I was riding their bikes. And from Riyadh, I flew to Jeddah across the country. So about an hour, 45-minute flight. And it was really interesting and I forgot about this detail in my previous trips here where I was thinking, I would like to visit Mecca. I have a thobe. I'm just going to wear the thobe. Well, you really can't. If you want to go to the mosque where the box is, like you have to be either on your Hajj or your Umrah. And the Hajj is the pilgrimage that they make during the specific Hajj season, which is like in June or July. If you do the pilgrimage any other time of the year, it's called the Umrah. But as a man, you're supposed to wear these robes, like these really kind of like basically big terry cloth towels wrapped around your waist and wrapped around your torso as a means of modesty to make yourself, pious before the Lord and equal to all the others. And you wear slippers and you make your pilgrimage. Well, people do that before they get on the plane. Like the men that were making their Umrah were in those outfits on the plane. And I was like, whoa, that's amazing. Like, I didn't realize, I thought they would fly here, maybe check in the hotel and then change and then go do their pilgrimage to Mecca. But evidently wherever they start their pilgrimage, they're wearing that outfit. Which if you're an American Muslim starting out in the United States in the winter, that could be quite cold. But I'm sure they make allowances for that. Oh, Michael Taz here. How are you, Michael? They find better coffee. Well, sometimes they do find better coffee. It's very nice. And Steven's in from Phoenix. How's it going, guys? We are here thanks for tuning in. We are here in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. And I'm here in front of the Ritz-Carlton in Jeddah, where they've been very kind to put me up, and they're hosting the event here, and they're putting me in the hotel, and it's super dope here. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe how nice it is. But here's the weird thing. Like for example, the lobby is super opulent. Like you're just like, oh my gosh, this is like unbelievable. The rooms are very nice, but they're not as opulent. It's very reserved. The rooms are very reserved. The bedding is very comfortable. It's all like Egyptian cotton and goose down. And so you're just sinking in the bed and just like, oh, I'm sleeping. Like the first night that I was here, I was sleeping. And I think I was sleeping like this at one point, because when I woke up for a moment, my left hand was completely numb. Like I couldn't even like grab something. It had been, when you lay on it so long, but it wasn't that kind of like falling asleep where you get the pinpricks. It wasn't like that. It was just like this dead hand. And for a brief moment, I was lying there thinking, oh my gosh, I'm having a heart attack, because it's the left arm, right? So I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have a heart attack. And even for a briefer moment, I was thinking, well, you know what? I'm lying in this bed. I'm super comfortable. If I must die, this is probably okay. So of course, I didn't, which is great. Great news, because that would have, interrupted my week, irreparably. So we're smoking the 8th Prime, the Sergeant. It's a nice cigar. It's like a 5.5, I think, or by 56 cigar. Nice, oily, kind of smooth, silky wrapper. Really nice construction. The thickness feels really comfortable in the hand. What else did I say about it? The draw, really lovely. Just the right amount of resistance, but also very loose. You know, the burn has been, we had a bit of a trouble lighting because it's very windy out here. So, but since that time, it's really leveled out and the burn has become really, really, smooth, and everything's really very, very good about it. The not so good news is that the flavor profile of the cigar just doesn't hit my palate. It's not singing with my palate. Like I was saying to the guys earlier, that if this cigar had the flavor profile of the Revenge, dang it, it'd be crazy. It'd be amazing. But because it doesn't have that, it's my personal palate. It's just good. But really, the quality of the flavor itself is very good, if that makes sense. So, Stephen, Michael, what are you guys out there smoking something? What are you smoking? What are you drinking? Drop them in the comments below. Love to hear it. If you want to see a little bit about the show that I'm doing here and the competition, I've been doing some live streams on Instagram, and they're still on there. I mean, I archive them on Instagram. So if you ever want to see what we're actually doing actively live here, you can look up the Instagram OnoCoffee4, and the first few posts are actually from today. So today we did a couple live streams from the show floor, from the competition stage, and took a little backstage tour in part one. There's two parts. Part one has a backstage tour, as well as on the stage how they're setting it up, and then a little bit of a tour around the trade show that's happening here. There's the Coffee and Chocolate Festival that's happening, which is a small. If you saw the live streams from Riyadh in December, this is a smaller version of that show. And out here, we're smoking outside. It's about 75 degrees, trade wind, so it's pretty breezy, but comfortable. The trade winds make it a little bit cool, but it's still pretty comfortable out here. Actually, today was a little bit strange. I was sitting in the audience at one point, and this local Saudi guy comes up to me and says, "Hey, you do YouTube videos, right?" And I was like, "Well, yes, I do." And he said, "I've seen your videos." And then he started talking about this one video about coffee roasting and how we do the water crunching, which is one of the more recent videos on the Spro Coffee channel. And I was like, "Oh, it really is a viewer. All right, thank you very much for tuning in. I appreciate it." But really nice guy. He turned out to be one of our competitors today. And it's a tough competition. You have, I might have said this earlier, but the competition is what's called the Cup Tasters Championship. And basically, as a competitor, you have a table that's presented to you that has 8 sets of coffees in a triangulation formula. So basically, there are 3 cups in each of the category, or each of the setups. 2 of the coffees are the same, 1 is different. And you taste the coffee, you taste the 3 cups, and I have to identify which is the odd cup out. The more cups that you identify correctly, the higher your score. But there's only 8 of them, so you have 8 minutes to evaluate these 8 sets. The faster your evaluation, potentially the higher placement, meaning that if you and other competitors have all correctly identified the 8 odd coffees, you then have the same score, right? 8. You are then able to differentiate between the 8s by how fast each of the competitors completed their task. So the faster you do it, the better your ranking. So if there are 3 of you have 8s and one of you has 754 and the other one has 631 and the other one has 622, the 622 is in the lead. And so we're doing 48 competitors, 24 today, 24 tomorrow, and then a semifinals of 8. So we're going to take those 48 down to 8, and then have those 8 to 4 for the finals. and they all go head to head on especially the finals. They'll be going head to head. So you'll see them finish, and like you'll see the order they finish. You're like, oh, if they get them all correctly, then that guy that finished first could be the champion. However, if they you still have to wait for the reveal, and it's kind of like as they're announcing, as they're, and you know, they're doing all this live. Like the MC is like, okay, lift up your number one, and there is or is not a dot on the bottom of the cup. So it's a very interactive experience for the audience to see exactly what's happening and like to know exactly, you know, who's in the lead. And Michael says, I just enjoy your critique, entertaining, comical, and informative. Oh, excellent, excellent. I love coffee, but I do not smoke. Oh, that's no problem. You don't have to smoke. We don't have any requirements. If you want to smoke, great. If not, that's cool too. What are the competitors? So we had a competitors meeting yesterday. And competitors always want to know, like, what kind of tips can I have? And so for this competition, they're like, well, what's your tip for this competition? I told them, well, here's the basic thing that you need to do is be accurate and be fast. If you can do both, you can win, right? And it is a little bit difficult. Like, you know, I'm watching and you know, kind of making sure that everything is running smoothly. And you know, you see some of the competitors, and they're taking their time. You know, they're really taking their time to taste the coffees and see which one is the weird one. And a number of the competitors will use the full 8 minutes, like they're stopping at 7:52, 7:54, 7:58. They're going right to the edge of, like, you know, penalty. And then some of them, they only got 3 of them correct. So you're like, oh, that is painful. That is painful because, you know, and everybody, of course, everybody hopes to win. And like I always tell judges and competitors in any of the competitions I oversee is like, truly only one person will be happy at the end of the week. That's the winner. Everybody else will be disappointed at some level. And even the guys that are like, you know, I'm totally doing this for my own personal development. I'm, you know, whatever about it. They're very optimistic. They're very humble about it. But still, you know that deep down inside, there's a part of them that's going to be a little bit disappointed because everybody hopes that they're going to win. Like everybody has that hope, like, oh, if I could win, this would be amazing. Oh, yes, we will. Welcome. Oh, well, thank you, Rusty. But yeah, yes, this is nice. So we finished the first third, and I'm going to say for the first third, I'm going to say flavor was very good. Even though to me it would be good for a personal level, I think objectively speaking, the flavor is very good. The intensity is low, like medium low, but quality-wise, I think it's still very good. So I'm giving it 8 both ways for the first third. For the fragrance, and I think the fragrance, I'd say fragrance is, well, maybe the fragrance was a little bit, like it wasn't very deep. So maybe 7.75. Now moving into the second third, and right now, if it hasn't really changed. So if it maintains, we'll probably see the same kind of score. Probably. Another thing that I was telling one of the competitors today, either today or yesterday, or maybe someone else, they were asking me, how can I develop my palate better? You know, and I always find that to be a challenging question. Like, how do you develop your palate? And one of the things that I think about that's been very helpful to me as far as palate development, especially as a person working coffee professionally, is actually the cigar and my love for food, right? Like, this is one thing that, you know, a lot of people in the coffee world always talk about, like, oh, you shouldn't smoke. Of course, they're talking about cigarettes, and cigarettes has those chemicals that coat your palate that really just destroy your taste. Whereas cigars are very natural tobacco, so you're getting a lot of flavor, you're getting a lot of nuance, and if you're engaging yourself with your cigar, you're thinking about, what does this cigar taste like? What are the flavors that I can identify here? And so they were asking me like yesterday about, oh, how can we develop our palate? I said, you know what? I think that was the great word, engaging your senses, right? You want to engage your senses in everything that you do, whether you're drinking, some kind of soda, like when you're talking your soda, what are you tasting? There's some caramel, there may be some tamarind, there's a brightness to it. Like in Pepsi, the brightness is not as distinct and sizzling as the phosphoric acid in Coca-Cola, which is what I really love about Coca-Cola, is the fact that it has that burning acid. So when you're eating French fries and, fatty foods, burgers, fries, and that kind of thing, milkshakes, like one of the great combinations, I think, is eating Wendy's burgers with French fries and the chocolates, the Frosty, and using the Coke to burn through the Frosty and clear your palate. That to me is like, that's awesome. But that's the power of Coca-Cola, is that phosphoric acid. The flavor of Coke is nice. This has a sweeter flavor than Coke. They're still very similar. Colas are relatively similar, but it's that burn, that phosphoric acid burn that I think makes Coke superior to the rest. It's also what I like, and this is a Coke product too. There's a ginger, like a ginger beer, ginger ale kind of soda from Uganda called Stony Tangawizi. And it's also made by the Coca-Cola Corporation, but that's got this like sizzling, like a hard burn, like from the ginger. And I think it's got some of the phosphoric acid as well. So it just so when you're out in like Uganda and you're eating like matoke and the groundnut sauce and your meats, all that is just getting burned away by the Stony. And I know you can't find it. I would love you to try, but I was at the Ugandan embassy in September, and I was talking to the consul and the ambassador, and they're like, so blah 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 blah. And I was like, you know what? I got a question for you guys. You guys are all Ugandan. You guys all live in DC. Is there a place that sells Stony Tangawizi here? And they're like, oh, there is a restaurant that we think has it, but it's hard to find, and I've never found it. So, yeah. No, Tony says, Wendy's Frosty float. Yeah. Not floating. I like to scoop it with the spoon, right? The Frosty, scoop this Frosty with the fries and a bite of the burger, and then the sip of the Coke later to clean the palate. It cleans it. And Michael says, one of my favorite drinks is pouring Coca-Cola into chocolate milk. Whoa, I've never thought about that. Coke has enough burn to hold itself. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I'm talking about here. But you know what I'm talking about. See, we're all simpatico here with that. But that's what I was telling these guys. And I think that's the things like, developing your palate for coffee or even for cigars is not just about, tasting only coffee and cigars. That's an important factor because you want to have that understanding of the context of the flavors within coffee or cigars. But I tell them, as you're eating anything, like you're out eating your meal, try to think about how you would describe that. Like, how would you describe an orange to someone that's never tried an orange? Like, you could say, yeah, it tastes like orange. Okay, what does that mean? How do you break that down? And I think the better that you can become at that, the better you have at understanding your palate and understanding flavor descriptors. Another thing that's nice about this particular competition is that basically it is a tasting competition. So in the world of coffee, we have a term of this thing called cupping, where we're tasting coffees critically. And there's a whole protocol behind it, but that's not really what's important. The nice thing about this competition is that you can, even though there's like for this particular one, there was only like a week notice that went out and call for competitors. And so some people were not able to get in, and they're a little bit upset. Of course, I understand that. And I told them that, they asked me in some of the live streams, well, how come I wasn't able to sign up? And I said, you know what, a lot of that fault, the limitation of the 48 that's my fault. That was my decision, because when the organizers were like, hey, this is what we want to do, I said, well, how many people do you plan to have? And they're like, well, we could have 100, 150. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. This is our very first time doing this here in the country. Nobody has experience doing it. Nobody's done it before. Let's keep it to a reasonable number that we can easily handle in case things go pear-shaped. And they came up the number. They decided, okay, 48 would be a good way to go, 24 and 24. And so we did 24 today. And yeah, you know what? There's always going to be little glitches, and we kind of fell behind. Like we were, I think at one point, by the end of the day, we were at least an hour behind. So, if we had double the amount of people, we would really have been in trouble, and so nobody enjoys that. The guys putting together the show, the runners and all the people working the background, they're unhappy because they know they're under the gun. The competitors are running late, so they're unhappy too, and no one's having a quality experience that way. So I told them we need to limit the amount. But the nice thing about this competition is that, people that are competing in it, if you had 2 months to prepare, it's unlikely you'll be able to really change much about your ability to perceive taste in that time. Like, you can improve it, but would it radically change you? That's not really enough time. So by the time you get to doing the competition, you're at the level of achievement you're going to be. It would probably take you another year to like really evolution higher. So this is kind of competition that it's not a terrible burden, because the competitors don't really have to do any preparation. Like the barista competition, there's a lot of preparation, there's a lot of rehearsal, there's a lot of script writing, there's a lot of thought that needs to be done by the competitor before the competition. So yeah. Now, I don't know if it's because I'm talking more or the winds are picking up, but like now that we're about halfway through the second third, I feel like the flavor is kind of like lighter than it had been. Like, it could also just be my palate's getting really used to it, so it's not terribly thrilled. So it's not like, maybe it's not paying attention as much. What I really do is spend more. I would like to spend more time in country after. Like this one, I think I'm leaving like the day or two after the competition's finished. And I was going to go to Dubai for a few days and check out the expo, but really I decided let's cut all that out and head back home, because got a lot of stuff to finish. Because in 2 weeks we're heading to Boston for the U.S. coffee trade show, and so that's going to be another week away. And then I'm supposed to go to Lima, Peru at the end of April. So it's like, I didn't want to stay away too long. And I know today's St. Patrick's Day. Here's the thing, like, I see messages from on some of the social media of, oh, happy St. Patrick's Day, but here, nobody talks about St. Patrick's Day here. It doesn't exist. Well, it makes sense. There's no drinking here. There's no alcohol in this country. So I bet in the diplomatic quarter in Riyadh, where all the embassies are, there's probably St. Patrick's Day celebrations happening now, because they're drinking there, but they're not. Nobody in the country else is drinking. So I haven't seen anybody even mention it here. It's very interesting in that respect. So right now as I'm puffing, right here on this, oh man, right here on my middle finger where I'm tapping, I can feel some heat under that wrapper. Like it's like super heated, like it's a little bit painful. And I'm going to pull the band off and see where we go with this. Ooh, that's kind of odd. Like you can see that the ash is, it's still got some space and there's some burning underneath that wrapper happening. Maybe I'm smoking a little bit too fast on it. Everything's still going. It's 4 a.m. Nothing's slowing down. That coffee shop across the street is still pumping, like they're hanging out, walking. Like if I look across the street, there's easily 40, almost 50 people over there. Like, I think that's kind of crazy. Like where we live, in like, Baltimore, you're not seeing this many people out in the, in most places in the city. But this is, cars are driving by. It's a hustling, bustling place. And these guys, you just saw these trucks roll by. They're loading stuff into the show. It's 4 a.m. That's a good one there. Corned beef shawarma. No, there's none of that here, but that sounds like it could be quite interesting. There is a lot of beef bacon. And actually the hotel breakfast buffet here, they have an excellent version of beef bacon. Like typically when I've come here, like you go to the breakfast buffet and the beef bacon is looking pretty like weak. Like maybe I'll have it one day, but after that, it's like, oh, that's just like mistreated beef. This one actually has that. They must have pulled it from like the belly or the brisket or something, because it actually has that kind of marbling, that kind of fat layer that you'd see from the pork belly that you see in like regular pork bacon. It was really, really good. And I was really, really surprised. And Brian wants to know, is there talk about the new COVID strain in travel? No, there's no talk about here. While people are wearing masks, it's kind of lifted. Like, I think I just read somewhere today that a lot of the restrictions are kind of being relaxed here in Saudi Arabia. Now, Jeddah as a city compared to Riyadh, the capital, is a much more relaxed city. Like it's much more cosmopolitan than Riyadh. It's much more liberal than Riyadh. So I don't know if that is, but like there's this app, and I know the guys, that I hang out with. I've shown you this app, that what they call the Tawakana. And when I first arrived in the country, like people were asking about my Tawakana app. The last couple days or the last day or so, nobody's I haven't been anywhere. So I've been in the hotel and the trade show. So, but yeah, I don't know. It seems pretty relaxed here about it. No one that I have known has talked much about it. Actually, the conversation hasn't been anything about COVID. No one's talking about the war in Ukraine. The news has them on the news, but it's not really a topic of conversation here. Now, a lot of people are still wearing their masks. Don't get me wrong. Like when you go to the trade show, I would say about 80 to 85% of people are still wearing masks. 15 to 20% are not. So I don't know. It's an interesting situation. And like they've closed a number of the COVID testing centers and vaccination centers. So vaccinations now here are more localized in smaller kind of clinics and stuff like that, from what I've been told. Actually makes me kind of wonder how, the host organization has to worry about it more than I do, but we still, as when you travel to the United States, we still have the 24-hour test requirement. So back in December when I was here, they just changed. The State Department made the change that anyone entering the United States has to have a PCR test within 24 hours of their departure city. So I still have to think about getting that done. It's really, yeah. It's actually really well done. Like most places here, they don't have that kind of respect for bacon and beef. Like really, it's just not very good. This one is actually quite good. And actually, the buffet here at the breakfast buffet at the Ritz Carlton is really quite outstanding. Outstanding. But there's some things that I'm still trying to figure out here in Saudi, like the proper Arabic coffee. Like there's a way to do it, and I kind of understand how to do it, but I still would like to find a place that's really super into it and like get to see them in action. Like, and it's kind of a weird thing to say that because everybody and their mother, quite literally everybody and their mother makes Arabic coffee here. So I don't know what there is to glean from that other than what I've seen already. Oh, another thing is here the MBS, the Crown Prince, has designated 2022 as the year of coffee here in Saudi Arabia. And as part of that, they have decided that they're going to rename Arabic coffee and call it Saudi coffee. So now Arabic coffee is no longer Arabic coffee; it's now Saudi coffee. So that's been that's been something we've talked about here a little bit this last couple of days. Well, we're running well on time here. 10 after 4 almost. Cigar's going well. We're coming down to the end of the second third. I think it's been relatively static, the same, that kind of quality-wise. It's been... if you notice, I don't have a score sheet with me. I did print one and bring one with me on the trip. However, because of the wind, I'm just like, I'm going to leave it. I'm not going to bring it down here because it might just blow away, and then that would have been a loss. So I have to remember what I'm saying here so that we can calculate it, and then I can review the numbers later from the replay. But I mentioned here in Jeddah is a much more cosmopolitan and liberal city. So Jeddah, because it's on the West Coast, much like California, everybody tells me it's a very liberal city, especially compared to Riyadh. Riyadh's very conservative. But here, because it's on the sea, it's been the crossroads for the country. So a lot of people from all over the world have done trade here, have moved here, have traveled through here. And, a number of different peoples have settled here. Like, actually, and they were, in the past couple of years, people were like, oh, you could pass for someone, you could pass for Saudi in Jeddah. And I was like, really? That seems weird. And there was this dude today, like, he looked like he walked straight out of Japan. But he was Saudi. And I was like, whoa, man, that's pretty. I was kind of like staring at him for a bit because I was like, whoa, that's so. He had Saudi wife and he spoke Arabic. He dressed like a Saudi. And I was like, wow, he totally looks like he's straight out of Japan. So I get it, and actually, if I wear the thobe, so today I was wearing a thobe, right, which is that white traditional outfit. So when I wear the thobe in Riyadh, people enjoy it or whatever, but nobody ever like expects me to be Saudi, right? But here, they were telling me yesterday, like, if you wear the thobe, people are going to talk to you in Arabic, and I was like, really? I was like, that seems weird. And yeah, a couple people did. They were kind of like, something Arabic, and I was like, no, I'm sorry, I don't speak Arabic. And they're like, oh, okay, that's cool. And I was like, but yeah, it's interesting. So it's a much more liberal part of the country than Riyadh, and like you can even see that like with their abayas by the women. Like the abayas here, the coverings tend to be a little bit more ornate and of different colors. Like they're more colorful. They have more applique on them. There seems to be a little bit less wearing of the niqab, which is the face, the veil. And, there is still a lot of hijab, but the niqab is more minimal, I think, here. There's still not, there's a few women that don't wear any of that. Like now that's allowed. So you can, as a woman, you don't have to wear any of that if you don't want to. But I think that's, I haven't seen a tremendous amount of that. I think still a lot of local women are still very much about the modesty of wearing some kind of covering. Brian says, Tony will calculate and take it out. Oh, okay, excellent, perfect. The fourth decimal is what we always need to have. That's always a good one. And I'm definitely getting bit by something. My ankle is now itchy. But the one that I was scratching earlier is no longer, I can still feel the bump, but I don't really feel the itchiness. But yeah, I would say that the weather here, very similar to Honolulu. Like the humidity levels, the cool evening temperatures, the trade wind breezes. And actually the really interesting thing, like even though this is a harbor, I get a partial view of the harbor from my room. My room is more of a city view. But like you see the Red Sea and it's like, it looks like the Caribbean. Like it's got that really nice turquoise blue. It's like really beautiful. Oh, and which reminds me, so I was saying earlier that the hotel, I was kind of surprised and then not so surprised that the hotel does not have a pool. Like there's no pool. This is the Ritz-Carlton. There's no pool here. Like what's up with that, right? You think, what's up with that? But then you think about the culture here and like, yeah, that makes sense. So I was talking to a friend of mine, Fahad, he's actually from Jeddah. And, you know, we're right on the Red Sea. So I was like, oh, it must be beaches. But when you look out, like along the Corniche or right here along the seafront, the port area, there's not really any sandy beaches. He was telling me that you have to drive. They have private beaches where you go there, you pay 500 riyals, which is, right now the currency exchange is about $3.75 riyals to the US dollar. So 375 riyals is $100? $10. Yeah. Well, so 375 is 100. So about $150 or $140. You and your family can reserve a private beach, and these are like sandy beaches that you can swim into the ocean, into the Red Sea. But they're actually they're about maybe like 500 meters wide or maybe less, 300 meters wide. And then they have these sea walls. They have these like walls. So it's a walled beach that's sectioned off that goes, you know, maybe 100, 200 feet into the ocean or into the sea so that your family can swim at the beach without anyone else seeing you. And that's what I mean when I say that when you think about the culture here, it's not so surprising that there is no pool, because here it's about modesty, right? They don't want women to be exposed to other men to gawk at them, essentially. So it made me wonder, like, you know, if you go to, because this is how it came up, because I was asking him, so how do people go to the beach here? Like, are there beaches? He's like, yeah, there's beaches here. How do they go to the beach? Because women are supposed to be covered in public. So you can't, it's not like in the United States, you go to the beach and then what? You're wearing a body, you just got to take it off. No, you can't do that. That's not allowed. Or at least now that it was not allowed before, it's now not. It's in some circles it's frowned upon. Let's put it that way. But it's not considered modest. And then he was telling me that there are types of bathing suits that are designed for the modesty that even have like a hijab, you know, head covering that you can swim in. It's not flowing, so it's not gonna weigh you down and like cause you to drown, but it's some, I'm not really sure exactly what it is. But you know, that's, Tony says it's Saudi hoochie wear. Yeah, it could be. But you know, so you're not going to put a pool where, you know, women and children would expose themselves to other people. That just wouldn't be considered proper here. And yeah, so I kind of get that. And let's speak of something else that's not proper. Like this is something I noticed when I was here in December. So before, you guys have all heard the stories about Saudi Arabia and how women are kept separate than the men. And they have these things called family sections at restaurants and malls and things like that. Actually, malls, depending on the time of day, before, some malls were exclusively for women. Single men could not go. And what that really means is that if you are a single man, like for example, what that means is you're like a single man, like we would think of single men, or you're just a man that is not with your woman, like you're married, but you don't have your wife with you, you don't have your children with you. Then if you're just by yourself, you as a man are not allowed to enter the family sections where the women and children are allowed to go. You must go to the single sections where it's only men. So that way it keeps women and children private from, non-married men. And at first, from a distance, you think, oh my gosh, what kind of archaic standard is this? But actually, when I first started coming here and the family sections were still enforced, after a while, I started to understand, like, here's a place where women can be amongst themselves or be themselves and not have to be subjected to our staring and leering at them. Like, we all know this. We're all guys. We're all cigar guys. We hang out at the cigar shop. Women walk by the cigar shop. We check them out, right? I think the reality is that's a certain pressure onto women that they removed here. However, when I started coming back here in December, they had already eliminated the family section. So there's no longer family sections anymore. So women and children and families and men are all kind of in the same space now. So that's all gone. So there's been a lot of, very progressive change in the country that's been very interesting to see in an in-person level. And actually, it's been since I started coming to Saudi at a time when it was it did exist. Coming back as it's being slowly eliminated is kind of strange. Like, it's really, like, you can really see the difference. Like, it's like, wow, there's like the religious police. And everyone's heard about these guys, even the ones that arrest everybody for all kinds of things. By the time I started coming here in September 2018, the Mokin, the police, the religious police, had already been defanged. Like, they had no more powers. And that's just eroded even more. Oh, I'm starting to feel some mistiness. Like, there's a little bit of cloud formation over here. So we may have to vacate, depending on how heavy this may turn out. Hopefully we won't get a downpour and I have to run for cover. But just in case, let's say that we're finishing the second third. I'm going to say, the flavor did kind of degrade a little bit. So I'm going to say 7.75 for the flavor. For the body, I'm going to maintain that it's still very good at 8. So we've got 8 for flavor in the first third, 7.75 for the second third, and solid 8s for the body in both thirds. And now we're really starting to move into the last third. And I'm just checking on our power situation. We've still got good power on the phone. That's actually, so I'm actually using my phone and tethering the computer to the phone that's actually doing the broadcast. So I got 38% on the computer. So we're still look like we're doing all right. We're still doing all right, which is really kind of good because I can see we can. Unless you guys are seeing any kind of glitching or any kind of slowdowns, let me know because I'm interested to know. But it seems that the stream is going pretty smoothly. Is that correct? I've been kind of wondering about that. Actually, the strange thing is that this phone, I did some tests on it before I left. A while back, not just before this trip, but I remember one time I was doing this and I was getting faster upload speeds, upwards of 15 megabits a second on the phone tethering than I would at the roastery location. Like the roastery with maximum upload speed is 5 megabits per second, but on this phone I was getting upwards of 15. So it's really kind of distressing in that respect. Great. Michael says it's going along smoothly. Excellent. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. And how's the sound, by the way? You know, so normally I'm using that external microphone, and it's running through a whole series of like processing and boards. Today I'm running everything through the camera and the HDMI cable into the system. But for the audio, I'm actually wearing a lapel mic that's running wirelessly. It's right here. You can't really see it because it's all black. But I hope the levels on the meters look like it's pretty good. You know, but if you're getting a distortion, let me know. This trip has also been interesting because, you know, so why do I do these trips, right? So I do volunteer work for a group called World Coffee Events, and they're the sanctioning body of 5 different types of coffee competitions around the world. And I'm what they call one of their reps, the representatives. And the role of a WCE rep is one that goes to different countries, supports their national championships, and just makes sure that they have all the tools they need to execute their competition at the level that we need them to operate, so that their champion is used to how things are going to be done at the world level, essentially. And so that's really my role. And so in this particular championship, the Cup Tasters, it's a very simple kind of competition. Like I said, you know, the competitors come up, they taste their coffees, and whatever coffees they get right is part of their score. And if necessary, the speed of their time also can play a factor. So there's, from a judging perspective, there's very little as a judge that I would need to do, because it's all kind of laid out by the competitor themselves, all in front of an audience and for all to see. Uh-oh. It's going out. Now I'm in trouble. I'm wondering if the extra humidity from this low pressure center is kind of adding more humidity to it, that's kind of causing it to go out. Because I don't think that I've been puffing on it any slower. Of course, because I'm pulling on it harder now to try to reignite the flame, it's getting a little more acridity, a little more sharpness, a little bit less pleasant. Hopefully that will smoothen out, because it's actually that heavy duty puffing has kind of made the flavor really unpleasant. A little bit biting, not biting because it doesn't have that much punch. Nice and clear. Good. Okay, great. Glad to hear. Thank you, guys. Oh, a little bit more spitting. It's a full moon in the full. I'm starting to see some of the cloud cover started to shroud the, just not shroud, but kind of like make it a little bit foggy, a little bit less clear. Yeah, I'm struggling with this. Let me tap this out. Maybe I can expose more of the core here. Yeah, I'm really struggling on this one. Let me see if I can relight. Oh, come on. Ooh. Okay, I think I was getting. able to get it down the center. Of course, I just kind of punched up the heat on my tongue. And in the center of the cigar. Okay. Ooh, unfortunately, that probably will take a hit on the... We'll have to regrouping. But like I was saying, it's a little bit uneven. So because it's just me, well, because it's a more simple kind of competition as far as judges, I don't have all we really need to have is me out here. For the Barista Championship that I come and have been doing for the last few years, I actually have a team of judges that I bring out. Some of them come from Mexico, some from the United States, and one of them comes from Seoul, Korea, and then another one comes from Singapore. So we have a group. And so they're my friends, and it gives me someone to hang out with and talk to. Whereas, like typically when I'm all alone on a trip, I'm usually alone with no one to talk to. So I sit around doing this by myself, talking to whoever. Like a madman. I'm really impressed that these LED lights have been holding up for this long. I didn't recharge them before I left, or I haven't recharged them since I left, so I wasn't sure how long they would last, but they're doing pretty good. Oof. All that relighting and heavy puffing has kind of overloaded my senses for a moment. Now I'm just puffing to keep it alive. But this is actually how and it's it's very few places like Saudi that actually has a larger organization and greater resources so that they can afford to bring more judges from around the world to be here to support the competition, which makes my job a little easier because I can then, my team, I can give them the different areas of responsibility and they can handle that, so I don't have to oversee everything. But most of the time, even for the Barista Championships that I go to other countries, I actually have to handle all of it and make sure. And one of the tasks that I'm trying to do here, as well as in Uganda, which is another country that I go to quite often, is we're trying to build a growing base of judges, local judges that can step into a lot of the roles. Like some of the younger judges were asking me today, they were like, how do we become head judges? We want to be head judges. How do we do that? And I was telling them, really the truth of the matter is that they're like, are there certification courses for head judges? And I said, well, actually the truth of the matter is that as the rep for the country, assignment of the head judges really is my responsibility. So I'm the one that ultimately decides who gets to be a head judge and who doesn't. And I told them, I'm looking for people that know the rules, know how to apply the rules in an even, consistent manner, who can also work with other judges and help coach them along. Because, it's not just about, and I went through this, about 12, 13 years ago, where, as the head judge, you're tasting the drinks in a barista competition, right? Along with your sensory judges. And your sensory judges have the ultimate responsibility of assigning scores for their drinks. But the head judge will taste them in order to understand where the judges are scoring and how they should score and get a better idea for what range is the area that they should be. And, when you're young and green and not really understanding what you're doing, you can tend to be a little bit overzealous. And I did that one year. I had that problem where, I was kind of like almost dictating what the score should be to the judges. And instead of like, and the hard part is really to be, have the depth of understanding and control of yourself so that you're helping to guide them to the score that they should be rather than telling them what they should be, right? And what that means is that, like we talk about with the scoring for the cigars, we're very deliberate in how we discuss the cigars and the scores and how we describe the cigars, right? Like we talk about good, very good. We've talked about this show quite a few times where, when I say it's very good, on our score sheet, we have a score of 8. And as we're describing it, so for example, let's say someone is saying that, let's say with our scoring system, you're talking to the person that's doing the judging, and they're like, it's a very good flavor. It's a very good body. And then when I look at their score sheets, it says 6.5. And then it's like, that's when you're like, okay, so describe to me that, well, that flavor was very good. Well, if it's very good, why do you give it a 6.5? Well, because it was 6.5. And I said, well, think about your description and think about how we would score that descriptor. And then you let the judge kind of come to that realization that, okay, maybe I'm a little bit too low. And conversely, it can be they can be too high. Like maybe they're saying that they're giving like a 9 and they're like, it's very good, but you gave it a 9. Yeah, it was very good. Well, what was that? What is the score that we give to very good? Well, we give it an 8. So what do you think about that now? And then you let them kind of decide where they should be. So when I'm talking to these guys today about being head judges, that's part of the conversation. It's like, you have to be able to work with your judges and, coach them along to come to the appropriate score for their experience. Especially as a head judge, when you're tasting the drinks after the sensory judge has tasted those drinks and is formulating their score based on their taste. So your taste, because it's after, could very well be different than what they experience. So you have to kind of find that balance. Actually, talking about this now is really helpful because I'm going to talk to those guys tomorrow and tell them a little bit more about what we discussed here tonight that I think will help put them in the right frame of mind for when we come to December. So what I mean by that is like, so this past year, so for the previous 2 years that we did the Barista Championship, I assigned all the head judges to be either myself or one of the other guys that was with me. This year, I kind of took myself out of that role as a head judge. I sat as a head judge on a couple of the panels, but I let our other judge from the United States be the head judge for the competition. I let him, kind of work with that. And then we assigned some of the local judges that showed a lot of characteristics that we're looking for. We let them sit in head judges so that we can help develop the judging pool here. And that's really what we want to do, is develop the pool of judges so that ultimately the goal is that we don't have to bring in so many international judges, or at least the international judges that we bring in can really be in more administrative kind of advisory roles rather than physically doing it, if that makes sense. All right, so we're back alive. So yeah, it did smoothen out a bit. So we're really kind of coming in. So it went out. So we had this like acridity, this heavy duty heat and burn, and that now that it's fully lit, that has all of those negatives have kind of slid away back to our original condition, that's very good. That's very good. Now, this is one of those things where it's like, if we're thinking about evaluating this cigar, so we said that the flavor for the first third was very good. We give it an 8. And the flavor for the second third had diminished a little bit to good plus, a high good. So I was saying 7.75. Now, I would say that this qualitatively could still be very good in flavor, but we did have that interference with the cigar going out. how much of that should we weigh into the scoring for the last third? And that's something maybe you guys are thinking about. Like, what would you think? Would it be justifiable to give it back to very good, or should it remain at 7.75 or maybe even less because of that glitch? Now, also part of that glitch in the burn, there's the category of burn and draw. Should that be more heavily weighted there? Tony says not much of it's environmental. Yeah, exactly. That's a great point. I think that's an important factor to keep in mind. So I think, yeah, maybe we'll take that consideration more into the burn and draw rather than the flavor itself. But we'll finish it out, and we're really coming to the end. And we really are coming to the end because we got 23% on the computer power. I'm going to lower the intensity of the screen to try to maximize our time. And I'm just wondering, like, should I how much of this stuff do I need to bring back with me into the hotel? I'm sure the guys will be very happy to come out here and take care of it all. Yeah, we're getting really to the end now. Like, it's starting to get a little bit warm on my fingers, so I'm not going to be able to hold on to it for too much longer. And Tony says, because when I was in Cabo at 70% humidity, it was damn near impossible to keep a cigar lit 23%. Oh, okay. Okay, got it. Yeah, I definitely have to say that I would think that it seems that the humidity of the environment does have an impact on the performance of the cigar. One thing that I really liked about living in Honolulu was that they always said that the conditions in Hawaii are very similar to the conditions in Cuba, in Havana. And I would say that conditions today are probably similar to that. You know, nice humidity, cool temperatures, warm but still a little bit on the cool side. So we're probably right around that same Cuban-esque region. Ooh. One thing I'm missing from our setup back home is our music. Our theme music we don't have here. There must be a way that I could program that into the computer to work somehow. But I think the stream has been going pretty smoothly. So the computer that I have back at the roastery that we use for the live streams is one of the more modern, like M1 Mac models. It's, you know, pretty modern. And the laptop that I'm using is actually a 2013 MacBook Air. So it's kind of long in the tooth, but the system that we use to do our broadcasts is a system up here in the corner called StreamYard. And it's a server-based broadcast system. So it's not really taxing the computer processor very much. It's mostly being handled on the end. And I talked to the guys at StreamYard a while back, and they were like, yeah, as long as it runs a browser, it should be able to work. So that's good to see that I don't have to worry so much about upgrading the laptop yet. Especially since Apple just came out with their new Mac Studio last week, which looks pretty cool. Eventually, I'd like to get one of those. So what I really would like to do at the studio back home is that, you know, of course, the Mac Mini for our main computer, and then I'd like to get another computer for the studio itself. And eventually, you know, it's not going to happen anytime soon because I don't have the $2,000 it's going to cost to buy a Mac Studio. But it's good to see that we still have a lot of time here. Rusty wants to know, how was the Pepsi as it has cooled down? It's actually been very good. It's actually very good. The cool breeze just keeps it very like cool and enjoyable. So not like we're in London where they want to drink everything at a very tepid temperature, including the sodas. It's still on the cooler side, which is really nice. And Tony says the 23% was not supposed to be there. It was very moist air to try and keep. Oh yeah, very much so, very much so. All right, I think we're pretty much at the end here. $85 degrees at 70% made me very heavy air and not great. So yeah, for sure. Oh, and my app is going off. Let's see what the app says. It's now 4:41 here in Saudi Arabia. And because I work out here and I keep this thing called Muslim Pro, and Muslim Pro is letting me know now at 4:41 it's called the Fajr, and Fajr is the first prayer of the day that happens right before sunrise. So I guess we're getting close to sunrise. Actually, the interesting thing here at this location is that there must not be any mosques really nearby, because I don't hear any of the call to prayer. Normally, like in Riyadh, especially at the hotel we normally stay in Riyadh, there's actually a mosque next door to the hotel. So even in my room, I can usually hear the call to prayer. But here, I haven't heard any of the call to prayer. Actually, which reminds me, one of the interesting things, when I go to Dubai, like here in Saudi Arabia, wherever I go, I'm usually interacting with Saudis, like actual Saudi people. But in Dubai, I don't really interact with many of the Emiratis. Like there's not, and of course the population is very different. Like here in Saudi Arabia, there's 65 million people. Most of them are actual Saudis. In Dubai or in the Emirates, there's actually only maybe 200,000 to 300,000 Emirati in a city in Dubai, and Dubai itself is a city of like, I think 3 or 4 million people, 5-6 million people maybe. So my interactions with actual Emiratis in Dubai or Arabs is very limited. It's mostly international people. All right, I can't really continue on this, but I thought that was really interesting about, when you go to Dubai, you don't really see a lot of the locals. Here, locals are everywhere, which is I think is really nice, because you get that cultural insight, Ooh. Now, I don't really have an ashtray per se, so I don't know what I'm going to do with the butt. Yeah. So since next week I'm going to be back, I'll be back home by the 22nd. I think that's Tuesday or Wednesday. So next week's show will be back from our normal broadcast location. And I think next week's cigar, I don't know, it's in the show notes down below. I don't actually, it's a little bit harder for me to, let me see if I can pull that up. I'm a little bit more hesitant to pull up more windows on the laptop, because, it's a little bit more. A little more difficult. Yeah, so next week's cigar is the HVC 500th anniversary Tesoros. So we'll be smoking that. And then the week after on the 31st, we're finally going to get to put the Revenge from Romacraft to the test. and see how that turns out. And then at some point in the next 2 weeks, I'm going to have to get down to Raoul's to stock up for future shows. And then, of course, on the week of June 30th, we're going to be doing our 100th episode. And Rusty and I were talking about that last week. And so that will be kind of interesting. I think we're toying around with actually moving that week's broadcast to Saturday, July 2nd. And the thought right now is that we're going to do a much larger live stream. So if you want to come down to the studio, we'll probably have the studio. So everyone's welcome to come down. We're going to have some food and cigars. And George says he's going to come up and bring cigars. And so it should be a nice time. Rusty said he'll bring some of those. So that'll be really enjoyable. And yeah, that should be quite interesting. It should be quite interesting. So we might do maybe like a 6-hour live stream and have different hosts and different cigars to go through. Because one of the things that I mentioned to someone that when we did our show from New Jersey, one of the things that I was me personally was a little bit disappointed was that because we still had our 2-hour format, we started out with the Imperial Jade, and I really was enjoying that. And then we moved to the other cigar, the Saint-Péray, and I really kind of wanted to stay with the Imperial Jade longer. So if we go to a longer format for that 100th episode, it'll give us more time to really spend with the different cigars for that day. Yeah, I can't really. Am I doing this? All right, I guess that's going to be it. It's now 4:46 here, so it should be 9:46 back home. And yeah, 7:46 for you out there, Stephen, in Phoenix. But as always, thanks for tuning in. We're here live from Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. I'll be here for a couple more days. We've got a couple more days of competition to do out here. If any of you happen to be watching, or catching on the replay, and you happen to be in Jeddah, come down here to the Ritz-Carlton over the next couple of days and come hang out with us here. It'll be a good time. But I guess that'll be it for this week. Thank you very much for spending this time with me. Really appreciate you being here. We'll be back again next week with the HVC 500th Anniversary Tesoro. And that should be quite an interesting cigar to check out. So thanks for tuning in, and catch you guys next time.